Host your holiday party at Apex Entertainment this year. Book early and save. Receive a $15 Apex gift card for each guest with holiday parties booked before October 1st. With flexible event space, attractions, and customizable menus, Apex is the perfect holiday party destination. For more information, contact the sales team or go to apexentertainment.com.
Bpod Studios.
Toucher and Rich.
I just want you to go, yeah, and like, oh yeah.
98.5, the Sports Hub.
.98.5, the Sports Hub. We're Toucher and Rich. Ted Johnson. Our friend is brought to you by Boston Prolotherapy, tennis elbow, plantar fasciitis, torn rotator cuff, arthritis. For pain in any joint, do what Ted Johnson did. Eliminate your pain with just 5 treatments with Boston Prolotherapy. Ted does a lot of work here at the station. He gets to hear Joe Murray talk about food. And he's all over the NBC Sports Boston. All right, let's just start with your thoughts on Sunday's game.
That was shocking to me. I was expecting a different outcome, and that game right there against the Saints has affected just how I feel about this team moving forward this year. I was very bullish on this team, and the reason I was because I just thought there would be a pronounced and a very significant answer to a 7-9 season that had to be miserable for everybody over there in Foxborough. I know it was for all the fans. I thought there would be just a bigger response, at least to start the season, from what happened last year when you consider all the new players. I know it takes time to gel and for guys to get continuity, but just on paper, they were just a much better team. And when you look at I think the first 3 teams they played before Tampa, I just thought it set up from a schedule standpoint very nicely for the Patriots to kind of get into a groove. And so I just never saw that kind of performance coming based on the way they played the Jets and the fact that the Saints had been displaced for a month, practiced at TCU, haven't seen their families in over a month because of the hurricane. We're missing still 3 coaches. They had all the kind of external factors into this game to really kind of lay an egg. The Saints, and it was the Patriots that didn't even look like they wanted to be there. Yeah. I mean, if you watched that game, clearly the Saints, there's an old expression that we always use in football, and at the end of the day, it comes down to who wants it more. It's because it's an emotional game. Who wants it more? And you can just see that the Saints wanted it more, and that was shocking to me, just considering everything that's on the line. So I had to reevaluate what I thought of this team, and it's a little bit scary, just some of the things you saw in this game, and maybe could be precursors to what's to come for the rest of the season.
As someone who has, been on that field before, I want you to explain how this works. We're seeing from this team an undisciplined group that like we haven't seen in years. I mean, this is very rare for any team that's been coached by Bill Belichick.
Well, we've never seen it. Since we've been here 16 years, we've never seen it.
It's shocking. I want you to take me through that final touchdown that the Saints scored, where there were 10 men on the field, and you could see at the upper corner of the screen, it looked like Chase Winovich running in, and right before the snap, kind of fell back. As somebody who obviously has played the game,
I didn't hear this.
Okay.
Oh,
so you did see, yeah. So matter of fact, nobody had noticed it until Bob Sosi was on our show yesterday morning and said, I think there were 10 men on the field in that final score. And I looked, and sure enough, you can see it looks like. And by the way, Chase Winovich was supposed to be on with Zolak and Bertrand yesterday. Surprisingly, after that play,
how will you know?
Missing from the interview.
Missing from the team.
Can you
missing from the field?
He was already in the doghouse.
Take me through where the lack of communication happens. How do we get in that position? Is that all a Chase Winovich problem if it was him, or how does what happened yesterday happen?
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't realize that Chase was maybe the one that could have been the guy that was supposed to be out there who wasn't. Bad look for Chase, because there's things that happened in that game that are just inexcusable.
Yeah.
All right. So you want to know what ticks off Bill Belichick? What ticks off Bill Belichick is letting guys. I'm going to case in point, not being out there. When you needed to be out there. That's a. What he can't stand is a lot of the mental mistakes. That's a mental mistake. You know what was a mental mistake? They had Alvin Kamara double teamed on that first touchdown, and he looked like he was wide open. Alvin Kamara was double teamed on that play. Believe it or not, he was double teamed, and that's how wide open he was.
I saw Van Noy let him go. Who's the other guy?
He was passing him off to the other linebacker because he thought he had help.
All right.
And that was Matthew Judon on the other side who completely busted that coverage. Now and I'm putting my reputation out there. I just want to. That is a mental error by that defense. They had him double teamed. Both outside linebackers, Matthew Judon, Kyle Van Noy was essentially had the outside part of that route. He was passing it off to Matt Judon because he had funnel coverage, what they call it funnel coverage, where it's two linebackers covering the back, and Matthew Judon just spaced on that. That right there, not having enough guys on the field at the end of the game. Missing, covering a guy that you have double teamed, thinking that he is not going to be a factor in that play, and he's wide open. Those are the things that tick Bill off the most, and you're seeing that from this team. And you can say these are uncharacteristic mistakes by the Patriots. We started seeing this last year. This was there was timeouts from the defense because of confusion, because guys weren't out there. So this has been a trend that's not starting this year. It started last year. It's not as buttoned up anymore, Rich. You're seeing things that you've never seen from this team that started last year.
Is that okay? So tell me specifically on the play with Chase Winslow, the final play. I want to make sure that could you blame the defensive coordinator? Like, how does that work?
Okay, so every defense they have these packages. You have dime, you have nickel, you have base.
And they were rotating constantly.
And then you have special different packages for different personnel groupings, and you name them. Yeah. You give them different names for different – that could have been a goal line package, okay? You're down by the goal line. Maybe it was just for sake of the conversation, just say it was a goal line package. And maybe Chase Winovich was the backup to somebody on goal line package, but that player got hurt and nobody told Chase Winovich.
Okay.
So there's a point in which my feeling is somebody got hurt on that drive, or somebody was missing, it wasn't available, and they called for, say, goal line package, and the guy that was supposed to be out there was hurt, but nobody told the backup.
Whose job is that to tell the Chase Winovich?
That's the coach's job.
Okay.
The coach is supposed to go to the player and say, hey, you're in on this play. So-and-so got hurt, and you're the backup, and he's hurt. You need to make sure that when we go to that package that you're in there. Somebody didn't relay to that player, probably the coach, who is responsible. So unless the player is, unless the starting guy is supposed to be ready for that, and it wasn't, paying attention, which is inexcusable. So to say it can be the player or the coach, but a lot of times it's the coach not relaying to the player, hey, you're in on this package now because so-and-so got hurt.
Imagine if it was Steve Belichick, whose responsibility that was.
Or it's either the position. It's usually not the
de facto defensive coordinator.
It's usually the position coach whose job it is to go tell that player.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was an interesting point. I think it might have been Matt Dolloff, who works for 985thesportshub.com, who was talking about not only can you possibly attribute the mistakes to the newness of a lot of the players in this team. The defense, though, has a ton of veterans. I don't know why this is happening, but also
veterans that are new to this team is what they would probably
Sure, but they also said that if you look at the coaching staff, there's been such a huge turnover that they haven't had a chance to build chemistry and gel as well. How much can you kind of put on that?
Well, then don't play the first half of the season. The game shouldn't count.
No. What he's talking about is they're trying to figure out how is there such a cluster F when it comes to mental mistakes on this team.
All right, so you're going to crush teams that are young for sucking. And then you go out and, not you, but the people crush teams that are young for sucking, and then turn around and take a team that went as big in free agency as any team has ever gone and said that these guys don't have it together by week 3. Understood?
I want to know how much of it is on the coaches and how much is on the players.
I put a lot of this on the coaches. I put a lot of this on the coaches. There hasn't been continuity in the coaching staff, but I've never heard Bill Belichick ever complain about that. He's never. To sit there and all of a sudden, now that they're 1-2, say, well, there's continuity. I don't want to give this team excuses.
It didn't matter before.
Last year,
it didn't. They lost Bill O'Brien. They lost They've lost McDaniels. They've lost everything. Defensive coordinators, offensive coordinators. They've lost everything. It never mattered.
Yeah.
Because Tom Brady was your quarterback. Now, all of a sudden,
so Tom Brady, you think, is the reason that they didn't have any mental mistakes on special teams?
I think
I don't see that.
Is
it the culture that he brought?
See, it's what I've been trying to capture, and sometimes I'm not good at maybe say it in the right way for people. It's the ecosystem has been disrupted. Tom being removed from the equation has completely disrupted what was going on there for the last 20. How can Tom Brady be responsible for 10 guys, only 10 guys out there? I know it sounds crazy, but it's just there's a lack of focus. There's a lack of accountability, and the younger players on this team, they don't maybe come to work with the same sense of urgency, because
that's fair.
Guys came to work with this sense of urgency and focus.
We're winning a championship
because the best player on the planet they felt like he was in it with them,
and you can't let him down.
Well,
you're right, exactly.
Yeah. Say I'm a kid on the team, and free agents, like big name guys that I grew up watching, are coming in for less money to play with Tom Brady, and they want to be there and they want to win, and so they're like Randy Moss and things. I know they traded for Randy Moss, but Randy Moss starts falling in line for the little amount of time he did, and you're sitting there and you're a young player. You're not. It's the same. It's like the same thing with getting vaccinated with Tampa Bay. Like it's just players fall in line, and it becomes that attitude. I can easily see it.
Let me ask you guys a question. If you come to work every day and your job is basically you either win the show or you don't win the show, and you come to work every day, and the guy next to you that you're playing with gives you a best chance to win your show every single day, aren't you going to come in and raise your level?
Sure.
Play.
You don't want to let down the best.
You're right.
That's what Rich feels like that constantly.
Every day, I'm sure. But these guys go to work. They're not sure every Sunday whether or not they have the guy at the quarterback position or the coach right now that's going to be the deciding factor of whether or not they win the game or not.
Right.
It's you play for this team with Tom Brady. You feel like you're going to win every game, and not only are you going to win it, but you're going to win championships. This team, I think you lose focus. You're not as maybe sharp as you need to be, because they all know collectively, without saying it, that they don't really have a chance to win the whole thing.
Well, I guess the only thing I would say that is somewhat disappointing is, everyone's talked about the two GOATs for all these years, that Brady and Belichick together. So what you're saying is that players would up their game when Brady was here, even though he's the greatest, but maybe they're not as willing to when they have the greatest coach of all time.
I'm going to say I think I question the buy-in. I question the buy-in from this team, and I said it last year. I was curious to see, would guys buy into Bill Belichick? It's Bill Belichick, Ted. Of course they're going to. It's the greatest coach ever. It's the greatest coach ever that now doesn't have the greatest quarterback ever.
Well,
it's
fair.
A completely different work environment now, and so it's like the psychology is so different.
Yep.
So people miss that piece of it, and that's a huge piece of it.
Well, Slater's still there. I mean,
Hall of Famer.
That's right.
Hall of Famer.
He's running down the field like no one's business.
Going to be a first Hall of Famer, first special teams guy ever elected to the Hall of Fame. You watch.
Yeah.
You watch. It's going to happen.
He should be. I mean, I wasn't going to go to Canton, but if they do that, I'll make the trip. All right. Ted Johnson's here. We will continue to talk to him.
This Sports Hub On Demand content is brought to you by Fraser Engineering. Fraser Engineering is your MVP for all your commercial mechanical needs. Just give them a call and make your next project a win. Go to FraserEngineering.com to find out more. Fraser Engineering. Great people doing great work.
They get you going every day.
I don't care for the sportsman-like talk.
Toucher and Rich.
At least let me live in a fantasy world that for 3 hours you hate each other.
On 98.5, the Sports Hub.
You probably didn't have the opportunity to look around that stadium and look up at all the banners that you were hanging and to take in, where Giselle and everybody was sitting in the box, or your favorite fans or moment or the guys that shooting off the cannons and all the stuff that they do. Will you take that in, and is there some emotion attached to that now because this kind of represents that opportunity?
Yeah, I think there's different types of emotions too, and I think that's a great point. Is there's different emotions that are cued by different experiences and feelings, and I think when I think of 20 years in one place, you're right. I know that locker room. I know that home locker room. I know that home tunnel. I know, which way the wind blows. I know everything about that. I know the way it smells. I know what a night game's like. I know what the fans are going to sound like. So in some ways that'll be really unique. I've never had that experience going to, New England. Will be a first time for me being on the other sidelines. I'm not going to necessarily reminisce. I don't think this is the moment for that. And I'll have plenty of opportunities to reminisce about my football career. None of which I really care to do right now because I'm so much in the moment.
It's mindful.
Well, I mean,
hanging out with D-Proc, right?
Yeah, baby.
Sure.
You got to get in that mindful mindset, baby.
In the meantime, you should go to TB12.com and get your TB12 The Return t-shirt. Only $35. And while you're at it, you can listen to the TB12 Keep Going podcast with Alex Guerrero, Season 2, Episode 3.
Jeez.
They put a giant ad for right underneath it.
Well,
that's unbelievable. He's selling the return T-shirts on his website.
Yeah, and
he's selling them in quotations.
There's a super cool tag on it, too. It says, nod to the T-shirt. Right here. Internal stamp. Commemorating the TB12 times New England can't miss matchup. And if you flip it up, the little bottom part, it says, The Return TB times NE 103 LFG.
I'll be damned.
Yeah.
You know who's the one of the first players to ever kind of market his fame on T-shirts at games? Do you remember there's back in 30 years ago, a very famous linebacker? Do you remember? Was it was Brian Bosworth?
Bosworth.
Okay. Yeah. Bosworth.
Stone Cold.
The best is Bosworth's incredible lies in his book. He's like, I would get drunk before games in high school and throw up on dudes. No, you didn't do that, Brian.
I totally believe you on that. I think a lot of that was...
No, he didn't do any of that.
I met Boz long after his days were over playing, just probably about 5 or 6 years ago, and I got that sense that it was a lot of it was just kind of an act. But the point is, I think the Boz had somebody selling T-shirts at the away games because they hated Boz so much, and he was smart enough to make money off of it.
He was a brilliant marketer. The way he marketed himself, it was brilliant.
Then he got run over by Bo Jackson, and everything changed.
And that was it.
Yeah, but I look at it even. I admire him more for what he did.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I remember he was in, I was like, what was the name of the movie he was in? It was Stone Cold. But I'm looking at his IMDb. Dude made a million movies where he was the star. I guess this is in the late days of VHS.
Are they Christian movies?
No. It's back
you
in
heard
business.
He's born again now.
Yeah, is he? Okay.
Oh, big time.
No,
he's
but
still alive.
These are not. No, these are movies where he's got his muscles out and a gun, and it says Midnight Heat. And then there's another one that's called Mach 2, and he's got a gun, One Man's Justice, a gun in front of the American flag, Back in Business, a gun with an explosion in the background.
They just released him in Oklahoma and then went away with their money. It's funny. Ted's in here, and John, Ted, and I were talking and just trying to figure out exactly the motivation for how absolutely idiotic they were in this offseason. And Ted's got some good ideas. It might have been spite. It might have been spite. But how they could be so dumb. All right. This is an X's and O's thing, Ted. The drive that there's the games that they've lost, two things in common, at least. But in the Miami game, Miami, they had a chance to get the ball back. New England had a chance to get the ball back. Miami just runs it down their throats and kills the clock. And then New England scores, even though they're getting dominated in that game. The defense is not letting in points, only give up 7 points. And so they get it to within 8, and then New Orleans, they have a big third down conversion.
That was the one pass. Other than that,
and then
it was Kamara and then Taysom Hill at the end.
And then they're running the effing Wildcat.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, all right, explain to me, at the end of the game, your defense has been playing well enough to keep them off the board. I don't know anything.
No, they were good enough.
Good enough to keep them off the board.
The defense was good enough on Sunday.
But how all of a sudden does it crumble? And how do you get to the point where you're just getting run over?
He disagrees. He doesn't think the defense.
So that's it. But it's interesting. So if you look at the Patriots stat, they didn't even give up 300 yards total offense to the Saints. The same thing in the Miami game. So if you look at this game against New Orleans, there's a lot of almost the similar type things played out in the Miami game in this game. For instance, So you can look at the defensive numbers from both of those games and go, the defense actually played pretty good. Did they, though? Because here's the thing. Your defense gave up a touchdown to a wide-open Alvin Kamara when you had him double-teamed.
Yeah.
That's horrific defense. The one guy who do you have to stop on that offense? Who was the number one player? And Alvin Kamara ran over your ass and then beat you on early in the game in a touchdown. That's not great defense. At the end of the game, when you have to have a stop, the 3 preceding drives by the New Orleans Saints went 5 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. And then when it mattered the most, they go on a 13-play drive for 75 yards, and you couldn't stop them, and you didn't even have enough guys at the end to keep them out. That is bad defense, and that is the hallmark of the defenses around here. It was always they knew how to finish games. This team doesn't know how to finish games, and this defense doesn't know how to finish games. What I saw on that last drive, at the end of the day, is it scheme? Is it personnel? At the end of the day, guys, it sounds so kind of lame, but I'm going to go back to maybe my high school days when it was the coach would tell you it's about the guy next to you, and you're like, yeah, it is. It's about the guy. At the end of the day, football, sometimes it comes down to, do you want it? How bad do you want it? Are you going to play hard for the guy next to you? Because no scheme sometimes is going to be good enough. It's about desire and heart and want to. And I just didn't see. I saw guys getting run over on that last drive. Guys looked gassed. Guys were missing tackles. Guys weren't getting off blocks. And it just looked like they didn't care enough about the guy next to them to play that extra, give it that extra effort. And so I question the effort and the heart and the buy-in when I see the defense not able to pony up, playing hard and not caring. I don't see guys out there with the care enough. And that's what you need to see.
Is the talent there, though?
The talent is there.
Okay, the talent
is there.
Okay. Are they going to care this Sunday?
Not like you want them to.
It's the biggest regular season game in NFL history. The world is going to be watching this game. Are they going to care this Sunday?
They're not like you want them to. So you want the people here want them to care enough. Hey, it's Tom's coming in. It's a rivalry game. They got to defend the wall. Half these guys are new. Half these guys don't care about the Bill Belichick, Tom Brady.
Take that away. Just take away that they're going to be on the biggest stage that you can be on during the regular season. I mean, this is going to be massive. The world's going to be watching this.
You know what? Right now, this team, their confidence is shaken. So if you're going into work right now, this whole week, they are not sure about who they are. They're questioning if things are what's going on there. They're having doubt. Okay. That is not the frame of mind you want for a football team taking on what is about to come in here on Sunday.
This is a crazy question, but as somebody who's been out there, if you had a generational talent like Stephon Gilmore out there with you, would that change your attitude?
It would help. It would help. I used to sit in the defensive meetings, and sometimes every now and then I just kind of look around the room. I look at our defensive line. And then I look at our linebackers and I look at our second. I'm like, we got the best defense in the NFL.
Sure.
I would just look at the talent at all 3 levels. Yeah. And I can go through all the names I don't need, but you know the guys I played with.
Yeah.
And I felt so much more confident going into games when I see Willie McGinnis in front of me and Ted Washington and Rodney Harrison behind me. Yeah. And if I'm that deep, I'm looking in that room, I'm looking around, I'm like, I'm not trusting anybody.
Plus leaders, because, you, Harris, and Brewski, all these guys are bought in and were very vocal. And
we all, helps. Exactly right. We all bought in and we all wanted the same thing. We were all on the same page, Freddie.
And that's not what they have now. And that's obvious. And does some of that come with bringing in, well, obviously, I'm answering my own question, but I'll just let you answer. Some of that come with bringing in a bunch of free agents, a bunch of veteran free agents does that help? That doesn't help with the buy-in.
It doesn't unless you have guys that are already here that are well established that are playing at high levels.
Right.
For example, Devin McCourty, Dante Hightower, Stephon Gilmore.
Yeah.
Stephon Gilmore, these players, these free agents that have come in, they wanted they were hoping they were going to play with Stephon Gilmore.
Right.
And, and he's not out there. And let's face it, Dante isn't the same player he used to be.
He's not on the
and
field.
so it's not having probably the impact that maybe Bill was hoping. These older guys, established veterans, accomplished players that have been on this team for a long time, they're still on this team. They're on the back nine in their careers. It just doesn't have the same probably impact I think Bill was hoping their leadership would have on these new guys.
It's funny, we're trying to assign blame on the offseason. If it was Kraft telling Belichick and Belichick doing it out of spite, or if it was Belichick losing his mind and doing it.
I think that there's a lot of Kraft saying, I do not want to be that team. I'm used to winning. You get me something out there that's serviceable.
I gave him more credit than that, but Ted thinks that maybe you're right.
I wouldn't put it past Bill. You want me to spend money? Oh, you want to win the free agency? You want to win free agency, Bill?
Let's go.
Oh, you want a quarterback, Robert? Is this what you want, Robert? Okay, hold my beer. Watch this. I'm gonna go spend my because the Patriots won free agency this year. Did they not?
It gives me more respect for Bill Belichick. Yeah. That he at least hasn't lost his mind. If he was just like, all right, I'll spend money. Yeah. Okay, I'll get you a quarterback.
Have a seat in this really uncomfortable chair across from my desk and watch.
I've thought that this was strongly encouraged by the Crafts from the beginning.
Yeah. And so Bill's like, okay.
I thought they were smarter than that.
Devon Godchow, Henry Anderson were signed on the first day of free agency.
Yeah.
They could have been signed a month after free agency. Oh, you want to win the day, huh, Robert?
Dude,
watch this.
Dude, Smith-Schuster signed a 1-year deal like a month after free agency. Right. They didn't have to sign any of these guys.
You're right.
They didn't. That whole narrative was, and it's all dust in the wind now. No one admits they were wrong. The whole thing that they snapped all these guys up at bargain price. No, they didn't. They committed more years and more money than they ever had to all of them. You think Aguilar that they were in some intense bidding war over Aguilar? Nonsense. Now, listen, if you want to bring him in, but don't tell me you had to sign him and Henry Anderson, a reject from the Jets, who I thought big white guy was going to come in here and just start dominating because he was on the Jets.
Actually, no, he did because every Jet cast-off comes here and plays well.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, on his Roman Pfeiffer and all those guys. Yeah. I would have more respect for Belichick if he was like, okay, Kraft, you don't like what happened last year and you want to win and you don't want to rebuild like everyone else. Sure. That I have more respect for because at least he hasn't lost his football mind. Because you'll never convince me what they did in the offseason was the right move. I will never be convinced. And, I mean, people killed me for it. Killed me. And you're absolutely right. That's a great point. You didn't have to sign those guys the first day of free agency.
Well, not the first day, but they did have money to spend. And
but you look at who they signed on the first day.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting.
Rich, I'm talking. There was guys. There was guys they signed on. Who won the day in free agency, the first and second day? It was the New England Patriots that all people were talking about.
Yeah.
And people who was really happy? RKK really happy about the headlines. Yeah. Bill was probably like, all right, you got what you wanted.
Well, out of the half dozen or so guys that they ended up getting, I mean, how many of them have played up to their potential?
Not
up to their contract.
It's up to their contract, not their potential.
Yeah.
I mean, Judon's third-round pick, Jonnu Smith's third-round pick,
Godchow looked okay. He looked okay finally. He hasn't up until this past week, but he looked
Jalen Mills was the guy on the coverage on the 3rd and 7.
Well, Jalen Mills was it. I don't even know why they signed Jalen Mills.
We all knew what Jalen Mills was when he got here. He was a safety blanket, a backup plan. They assumed Gilmore would be there and Mills could play safety and move in and out. Now he's being forced to be a boundary corner, right?
Jonnu Smith could end up being a good tight end, but you can't go back in time and tell me that you knew he was going to be good. He hadn't done anything in the NFL. It was all based on potential, and none of us had seen him play. None of us had watched enough of the Tennessee games. None of us.
Well, he was a backup tight end.
Yeah, I know, and that's why. But that was the most brilliant signing, and it was so grand that they went out and spent that money. It was nonsense. It was nonsense. Oh, you're an idiot. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You didn't watch the guy.
I was happy because it was an upgrade from anything that they had at tight end.
I don't know if it's an upgrade.
I was like, thank you. You did something at tight end.
You say whatever you want. It's a
They took two kids. You know he's better than Asiasi? You know that.
Yes.
You don't know that.
Yes, Ted Johnson, do you know that?
Yes, I do.
I think he is.
Same round.
But I don't think he's worth the money that he got.
That's different, but it was an upgrade, and they needed to upgrade.
Both third-round picks. They're both third-round picks. Asiasi's in his second year. The other kid, the other tight end, I don't even know where he is now.
Keene.
I don't even know where
he's
he
injured.
is.
He's hurt.
All right, I don't know what happened to him.
He's an H-back who's hurt.
I thought he was going to be the next Jim Jensen. I was wrong.
That's
on
correct.
Dalton King. Very wrong.
Oh, yeah. Well, Joe Murray was all in on Asiasi.
Jim Jensen. There's a pull right there.
Yeah.
Dolphins.
Oh, Jim Jensen was a jet killer.
Oh, yeah.
Jim Jensen.
Number 11. Line him up in the backfield. Line him up all over the place.
Everywhere. Jim Jensen's everywhere.
Jim Jensen. Wow.
I know Jim Jensen very well.
Johnson.
He's going to throw A.J. Dewey out there and really put the knife in. All right. We'll be right back.
This Sports Hub On Demand content is brought to you by Coastal Heritage Bank. At Coastal Heritage Bank, they have the privilege of being a community bank, committed to enriching the lives of their neighbors, including helping customers become homeowners. Visit coastalheritagebank.com to learn about their comprehensive line of mortgage products, including their first-time homebuyer program. Coastal Heritage Bank, growing together. Member FDIC, member DIF, equal housing lender, NMLS number 45145.
Sports Hub. What they say in the morning, you'll be talking about all day.
This is a dumb conversation, but, why the hell not? That's what we do.
Toucher and Rich, 98.5, the Sports Hub.
98.5, the Sports Hub, where Toucher and Rich will start telling you how you can get tickets to Sunday's game here on the radio station coming up at 8 o'clock. You got to work a little harder on that. Ted Johnson, we were talking about this off air. You see Hightower wasn't on the field during that last drive. He's getting paid way more than he's worth in terms of performance. And you were talking about why that may be, what Bill values and why he would pay someone more than they're worth performance-wise.
I think it's because he values leadership and influence. All right, Bill is, look, he can rub a lot. He's very difficult to play for, and I'd say the majority of the players on that team all feel the same way about Bill, where they're scared to death of him, and they're always singing for their supper. But there's a handful of guys that Bill will identify as kind of untouchables, and guys he feels like he needs to carry on his message and be an example that he wants set in the locker room. And so he is willing to pay for those services. Mm-hmm. And so that comes in the form of a Devin McCourty, a Dante Hightower, a Matthew Slater. He's typically Bill pays you on what he thinks you can produce.
Right.
And as Bill's gotten older, he has paid players based on their influence and impact and leadership off the field and in their ambassadorship, if you will.
Right.
More than he's paying them to produce.
All right, so let's talk about Judon. I brought him up off the air. Judon's a guy, kind of like a self-made guy, made his way into this contract, and you have some concerns.
Well, no, I do, in the sense that I think Bill's empowered Matthew. I really do. I think Bill gave him a lot of just some of the practices I saw. Mm-hmm. Matthew Judon he's been very vocal. You could see he was kind of a guy that was really, there was a lot of buy-in from Matthew Judon. It's kind of drinking the Kool-Aid, saying a lot of the things you'd hear a guy that's been here in the earlier year days, mm-hmm. how he talks about the Patriots. Matthew Judon is kind of was talking like that. And I wonder how long that is going to be going on for this year, because I will say this about Matthew Judon, and everybody's hyped about Matthew. You see the 2.5 sacks? It was great. But he hasn't been great against the run. And I think he was partly responsible for that touchdown for Alvin Kamara. It was a mental mistake. I'm putting that on Matthew Judon. And Bill doesn't have tolerance for that. So you can go out and have 2 sacks. That's great. But if you have mental errors and you can't stop the run, that's a big, big concern. And I will say this. You know that the personal foul he got on punt return in the first game against Miami? Did you notice in this last game there was a punt return and somebody was late getting out on the field for the Patriots?
I didn't notice that.
And it was Matthew Judon.
Oh, wow.
So Matthew Judon's late getting out there for a punt return. Now, he got out there, but he was late getting out there. And I thought, that's interesting. What does that tell me? that tells me Matthew Judon, the last thing that Matthew Judon wants to do is play on punt return. And he got a personal foul, if I had to guess, because he didn't want to be out there, and he probably made the poor bastard that was lined up across him, he was going to pay for the fact that he was pissed off that he's on punt return. So clearly, I don't think he wants to be on punt return. Yet Bill has him out there. There was a mental error on that touchdown play I'm talking about. He hasn't been good against the run. And my feeling is Matthew Judon is probably not happy with maybe how things are playing out here so far.
And
just watch that relationship.
How does Bill react to that in your experience when it becomes like a peeing contest? Like, would Bill acquiesce and take him off of special teams? Like
he trades you to the Lions.
He would typically make an example out of you. He would trade you to the Lions, or he'll bury you, or but Bill's very good at what Bill will do is he had all his coaches. If you're your position coach or D-line, he'll go tell that coach, ignore the player. I want you to be hard on this player today. We're gonna make life miserable for Matthew Judon today. So just everybody's on the same page with that, and so it's like this concerted effort to be hard on him and to really make it uncomfortable so that the player hopefully he gets the response that he wants, and he'll be pissed off and feel like his job's shredded. So he'll get a better play out of the player. You have to be careful. Bill has to be careful how he coaches. Right. You want to bench Dante Hightower for poor play? Okay. If you're going to bench Dante Hightower at the end of a game because of poor play, you risk losing Dante for the rest of the season. And that's where Bill doesn't have Tom Brady to fall onto. Where you could play all these mental games. You could jerk guys around. You could bench guys and be the hard-o coach when you had Tom Brady out there basically covering. You could do a lot of things, and it didn't matter because Tom Brady was your quarterback. Bill doesn't have that to fall on, so he has to be very careful. Jonnu Smith played a terrible game. Will there be any consequences? Will he not start the next game? Will his reps be diminished? And if they do, will Jonnu Smith check out, mentally, emotionally? So Bill doesn't have the same sway and power that he used to anymore, because if there's consequences for poor play, like there's always been for 20 years typically, and you start playing games with these guys, they might just be like, screw you, Bill, and check out, where it was different back then because guys were like, they didn't want to miss out because they wanted to play. And they wanted to play with Tom, and they knew Tom could make them rich. Tom could make them rich, and you know what? And Bill could make all these decisions and demote guys and play head games with guys because you had the greatest quarterback that was going to make up for any deficiencies you have with some of the decisions you make.
Well, speaking of that quarterback, if you
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yes,
totally. No, it makes total sense.
I tell you if it didn't. You if it didn't.
It makes sense.
Don't read Twitter. The people on Twitter, it doesn't make sense to because they're brain dead.
If you were right now in that, I mean, let's say you were Bill or you were, Gerard Mayo or any of these guys talking to the defense this week, how would you approach Tom Brady?
I wouldn't use any of the don't try to motivate them by Tom's coming in here and he's the enemy. Like, don't even go there. You keep it very, very kind of plain. And it just, there's what we got to do. We got to get pressure up the middle. You got to do timely blitzing, but you got to do it with 4-man rush.
The pressure up the middle thing is that, I mean, because we've seen Tom, when that rush comes over the last several years, just be an assassin. And especially with all those guys that he can dish it out to right now. I mean, do they have any chance of success with that? With this crew that the Patriots have? It's
going to be tough because I think you have to have a defense that is highly, highly motivated and playing well and just feeling really good about themselves. Mm-hmm. This defense, I don't think is they're not doing that. One thing you're going to have to do is you better make it one-dimensional. That sounds crazy, but you better force Tom to throw the ball 50 times. Well, it's Tom Brady. He's going to slice you. I get it. But the only chance you really have, if they're able to run the football and dictate terms that way, like teams that have no business running on the Patriots have been doing so far this year, that with bad running games, and they're able to do it, then you open it up to just a bludgeoning. So you better at least stop their running game, and force Tom into more predictable scenarios.
Well, the good news is they just came off of a game where Tom Brady was the leading rusher with 14 yards.
He threw it all over the place and then
That's
lost.
a pretty good defense.
Yeah.
But and they still scored 24 points, guys.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they
He threw for
still
over
scored
430 yards.
This
as
team
well.
is averaging 34 points a game. The Patriots are averaging 18 points a game. You're going to have to your offense is going to have to score a lot of points if you're going to win this game. Your defense is just what you do is, Freddie, at the end of the day, there's two things you got to be good at and be dominant at. One is on third down. But when they do get in the red zone, because they are, just be good in the red zone. You know, like you can move the ball up and down the field, but just clamp down and keep them to field goals, and you might have a chance.
Are we going to see some weird-ass trick plays because they're going to just throw the sink at the Buccaneers this week? Do you expect there to be any kind of strange, over-the-top trickery when it comes to the playbook?
I mean, we saw in the Jets game, for crying out loud.
If I was a Pats fan, I'd be so pissed. I'd be like, you're 1-2. You've lost your 2 home games, and you were saving it? You were saving it for this game? Should have used it against the Saints.
I just got a weird feeling we're going to see that.
Well,
what is that always a sign of? When you see the Patriots,
you don't have the talent to win.
That's usually what that means. Well. So I don't know if the Patriots want to basically, show everybody that they don't have enough to get it done. But
I think everyone realizes that coming into the game.
Let's see Mac Jones throw it downfield. He was so effective at it on Sunday. His big downfield balls that obviously they had pumped Schler full of information about. Because he'd overthrow guys by 15 yards, and Schler would be like, look at that. Only overthrew him by 15 yards. Or it's only 5 yards out of bounds.
But you know what's interesting? Just real quick, a little stat nug for you. So the Patriots were being criticized the first 2 games in their offense for what? Not throwing it downfield. They had 19 pass attempts of 15 yards or more in this pass game. 19.
Yep. Yep.
Do you know how many they connected on? 3.
Yeah.
3 passes.
It was magical.
It's just a 3 of 19 on passes.
And Schler is on there on the air going, look at that ball. Well, yeah, I'm looking at it. It's in the crowd. Look at the ball. It just bounced into the audience. All right. Great stuff, Ted Johnson.
Right,
thank you.
Have fun.
We appreciate it. When we come back, we'll tell you how you can get tickets from us to get to Sunday's game.
Boom Boom Games, your home for 80s and 90s retro video games, wrestling figures and collectibles, vintage toys, cards, comics, and all your nostalgia needs. They've got something for every console, from Atari 2600 to the PS5 and Xbox Series X. Looking for a specific video game? Let them know and they'll try to source it for you. Do you have some old consoles or collectibles? Bring them in, because Boom Boom Games buys and trades. Boom Boom Games is also your store for Star Wars toys, Pokemon, and the wrestling section will have you feeling that sweet chin music. Boom Boom Games in Billerica. Check them out.